Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. It's super freaking late. Why I am up right now? Well, it's probably because I'm drinking coffee still at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow is my son Aiden's birthday. I haven't seen Aiden in almost a year now. It's been tough. Missing my son like that, missing all kids. Divorce is a son of a bitch. For those of you who have ever been through it, I'm sure you can relate, especially when you got kids involved. This whole divorce business is a son of a bitch, and it's riddled our entire nation. I don't know why or what changed or why this is the norm or why this is the way it plays out, but the laws that support the split-ups of marriages and the laws that support the child support and the visitation and the arrangements really think in a modern society need to be reevaluated so that it is more equitable, and that, there's every effort made by our court systems to ensure that both parents are considered and that the relationship with the children is considered, and that, the value of protecting both parents, both financially and with time with their children, I think is extremely important. I think our system, I think that our courts, I think that our laws are written for a time from long ago. And we really need to reevaluate this. I think that children suffer mightily from the imbalances that are brought into the patriarchal system. A lot of people, a lot of guys in particular, don't realize this. But much of the reason why laws are so unfair to men is largely because of patriarchy. They have it in their head that it's, bad women this or bad that. But the reality is patriarchy. Sorry about this, folks. I'm adjusting the camera a little bit. But patriarchy has done a terrible thing to us all. Patriarchy has really put a lot of weight on the shoulders of men to be manly men and to be providers and to be the hard workers and to be this and that and the other. And, the reality is the system is set up, the country is set up, employment is set up, where men are literally put in these very bizarre situations where identifying what the role of a man in a modern society is, coupled with the role of a father in modern society, and the role of how to, actually, operate in an equal fashion, in a way where men don't rule over women and women don't rule over men, kind of thing, where everybody has a stake in the game. And, I tell you a little story for those of you all who have been through this. When I got divorced the first time, we both lived in the state of Maryland, and she hooked up with some military guy and went ahead and decided that they were going to go ahead and transfer 810 miles away to some other air base. And because it was military, I had no choice but to basically let them leave the state. Once they left the state, there was no compelling reason for me to stay in the state, so I left the state as well. By me leaving the state, by me walking away from the state of Maryland, the entire divorce decree, well, the divorce was final, but the child support, the visitation, all the rules and jurisdictions that could support a dad making a claim, to see his children. I had to fly all the way to Alabama to show up to court, to petition, to see my children. And when I got to the courthouse in Alabama, I had a stack of letters and references and everything else that had been notarized and everything else. And the courts wouldn't take any of them. They said that they were just hearsay without them being there for cross-examination. So they said that the only choices I would have would be to fly, literally fly, every single person that was going to be a witness for me down to the state of Alabama from the state of Maryland. Now, you're talking thousands upon thousands of dollars to do that. I asked the court if the court would give me a virtual courtroom up in the Washtenaw region, and I was rejected. They said that they wouldn't take the letters either because the letters being hearsay, the judge could have considered them, but the judge chose instead to throw them out. So I ended up walking away, having dinner with my children, and then I had to fly home, and that was it. And I didn't see them again for a long time. For 7 years, I saw them for a total of 10 days. And I tried desperately, and it wasn't there. Something called parental alienation syndrome. Look it up. It's really bad business. And what happens is when kids are far away, they don't get but one quick shot to hear whatever that other parent has to say. And then the other 360 days of the year, the other parent gets to say whatever they want to say. And there is no fixing that. But there needs to be a legal fix to that. For other people, my kids are grown. Most of them are all grown. I've got 2 children now that live relatively close to me, that are young, that are still within my reach. But my other children have all graduated or are graduating and are in college, etc. But if you ever want to know what pain is, you ever want to know what real, honest-to-God pain is, you go to bed at night missing your children. You wake up in the morning missing your children. You go to work in a fog missing your children. You go ahead and you cut the grass, you're missing your children. You go to sleep at night, you're envisioning their feet running along the boards in the ceiling as Christmas morning comes and they're running down to get their presents and they're not there. And you don't see them, and you're by yourself with a little shitty tree and no presents under it because you can't afford it. You know, and they don't come. They don't want to come. They stop wanting to come because it's more trouble to go see dad than it is just to stay there with mom. And you go through this stuff, and I can tell you that I'm going to write a book about this one day. The trials and tribulations I've been through are so horrific. So unbearably horrible. And I fought with every penny that I had at my disposal. I ended up having to file bankruptcy as a result of fighting this. I went around and came up with $20,000 overnight to get a retainer and to block her from leaving the state of Maryland. And I got a 10-day reprieve or something like that. I mean, the rules and laws are so unbelievably difficult. And for almost, I don't know, so what, 2002? I've been paying close to $3,000 a month for child support since 2002. $3,000 a month, folks. And imagine trying to take care of your own self, much less another family, with whatever's left over. $3,000 net after tax dollars. Think about what that is. A lot of people, they don't make $3,000 a month. But I pay $3,000 a month in child support. So I think it's important that we recognize as a country that there are good people, there are bad people. This isn't a gender issue at all, just so we're on the same page. This is a society, this is a system that is founded in patriarchy even to this day. And it really, really destroys men. Good men. Good men it destroys. And it really harms kids. And it allows bad men to screw over good women. But let me tell you something. If we don't change these laws, you're going to have another generation of kids coming out that are absolutely fucked by this system. Now, I will tell you, I've seen some minor changes that have brought about some parity and have gotten rid of some of the patriarchal stuff that has cost people so much pain and suffering over the years. But there's not nearly enough movement on this. And if you haven't heard me say this, I'm saying it again. It's this patriarchy that is doing this, folks. If you think that patriarchy is something we should keep hold of, I got a bunch of reasons that's not true. I know women in general would like to see patriarchy end, but I can tell you one of the outcomes of patriarchy ending would be equality on the divorce front, and there would be equality on the child front in terms of who would get custody. And it would also be a whole bunch of other equality-based movements that I think are downright necessary. But I think more importantly, if the state wants to play a role in deciding where children go and wants to decide where finances go, I think the state needs to take a totally different perspective and view the wholeness of these families and consider a way that the state can keep families whole. Obviously, there are always people that quote unquote get over on the system. I'm not one of those people that focuses on that. I don't think I'm a loser. I think the people that focus on those kinds of things, pretty much losers. They look over people's shoulders at what they're using with their food stamps. Losers, okay? But for the most part, I think people as a whole, people as a whole should be whole. And we can do that. There's ways of doing this. There's ways of structuring so that women aren't trapped or men aren't trapped in very, very sick relationships for fear of financial distress by splitting up. There's no reason that people should be stuck in bad situations for fear of financial distress. That should be the last reason. But on the same hand, I think it's important that when you enter into a family relationship, that you realize that there are more people than yourself involved there. And just because you've got rage or anger at your ex-spouse doesn't mean that the kids should have to be kept away from them. That's your problem. You leave them kids out of it. Like I said, one of these days I am going to write a book about this. I mean, when I'm in a position where I can tell the story the way it really happened and not worry about any blowback, I will be putting pen to paper. Because I think I have a way of tying in my activism through economics and my activism as a progressive, and be able to tie that together to talk about the most painful subject in America, which is divorce. I think there's a way to make that a win-win. I know that they want to make it punitive. I know they want to try and make it so it's difficult to get out of and try and keep you trapped. But I think society benefits from people that are not trapped and that are able to stay out of love and stay out of certain commitments, but not artificial ones like a financial construct. There's nothing like having bills that you created based on an idea that you were a family, and then all of a sudden you split that family up and you're still stuck with those bills. I mean, how many people do you know would take on, $127,000 worth of student loans thinking they were taking care of their family, only to have that family walk away and still be strapped with the debt? I mean, these are things that you don't think about, but they're very real. And for those of you out there who are buried in debt from a divorce or two, It's the gift that keeps on taking, isn't it? You know, I I think that it's okay if you don't agree about patriarchy. It's okay. We don't always have to agree. I just happen to be living this experience, so I'm pretty much sure I'm right, at least in my world, and discussions with others. And many women would suggest that this is patriarchy at play as well, and the direct result of patriarchy that creates these imbalances, that redefines what a man is based on biblical terms and based on the way that they value the man's role versus the woman's role and so forth. I think that an incredible amount of damage has been done as a direct result of that very, 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 very BC AD kind of mindset, you know? And I think it's time that we re-examine what it means to be a man and a woman in a relationship, or whatever your gender is in whatever relationship you're in. I think that we've gotten to a point now where, you know, you want equality and you want to see societal change, and you want to see all these different changes in the structure of the way society is governed and the way that we interact with each other. You got to start with some of these foundational things, because I don't know what the statistic is. This is very, very off the cuff, late night live streaming. But if you think about this, I bet you it's close to 50% of the marriages in America fail, maybe more than that. And, so you figure that this situation of the split support, split family is affecting almost, I don't know, tons and tons and tons of children in this country. So I think it's really high time that we had some good civil discourse about what it looks like. Not revenge. The object here is not revenge. The object is, how do we make everyone whole? That should be the guiding principle in everything that we do. I think that everything that we do should be about making everyone whole. So, anyway, I'm not going to keep going on. I just wanted to let you guys know that I think there's a lot of uses for MMT that have nothing to do with just debt and deficits, that have to do with programs that we can leverage to make society more sustainable for all, and make it more healthy for all, and make it less punitive for all. Anyway, I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a good night, everybody.